These nature recipes always look so magical and I always wanted to make one, so today I'm going to take you into the neck of the woods in my hood where we're going to be making these wild quesadillas from a channel called Two Men with a Pot and their dog Kobe. We don't have a stone slab and the raging fire, but we do have a cast iron pan and a dream. I'll also be using a wooden cutting surface, just like nature intended. In the wild, they use these handcrafted pots over a blazing fire, but today I'll match it with my trusty and slightly dysfunctional jezve for my Turkish coffee video. And a lot of the time, these outdoor cooking videos are more of a visual experience and don't include measurements, so I'm gonna have to improvise this time with the use of ChatGPT. I'm going to add 180 milliliters of this milk I was supposed to bring back home for my son. We're gonna heat it up to about 50 degrees Celsius. It doesn't look like he measured the butter, so we're just gonna add a knob of butter into a little saucepan and heat it up. He's got those wooden bowls out of a fairy tale. It's a shame he threw one away, but I'm using the classic metal bowls, which aren't as beautiful or enchanted, but it's at least dishwasher safe. For our tortilla mix, we're going to be using all-purpose flour, which is common for making tortillas. We're going to add 2.5 cups to our bowl and save a little bit on the side for dusting later. We're going to put in 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of instant yeast, which I know he's using because he just mixes it into the dry ingredients right away, unlike the active dry yeast, which you kind of got to wake up a little bit first. Then we're just going to mix it in a little bit until it's all homogeneous. This actually feels oddly satisfying. I'm really trying to recreate this experience as best as possible from home, so let me know how I'm doing. We already added the salt and now we're going to use nature's mixer and some elbow grease and get right in there. This process should take about 5 minutes, but it seems like something is off with my recipe. It's not really coming together. I'm not sure if there's too much flour or too little liquid. Then I made the fatal error in attempting to fix it by adding more milk, which was cold and it started to feel like Dwayne Johnson. I tried kneading it a bit longer in the hopes that it would fix, but it didn't sound too good. So I'll have to start all over, and because I'm more stubborn than a rock, I'm gonna follow the same recipe, only this time I'm gonna heat the milk a bit more, and another mistake I made was mixing it with my hands right away, so this time I will use a whisk first, which is gonna help mix the dry ingredients with the liquid a lot more evenly. It looks like it's coming together a lot better than the first time, although it still feels like there's a bit too much flour, so I heated up a little bit of water to 50 degrees Celsius, and I added it in bit by bit while I was kneading the dough, and it looks like it's working. Now that the dough feels soft and not too sticky, I'm gonna leave it in the bowl for about an hour, which gives me time to take a shower because I'm covered in dough. I should probably invest in an apron soon. Next, we're gonna season our ground beef. I think this is the first time that I had all the seasoning ingredients in my cabinet. Luckily, it's a pretty simple recipe. All we're gonna need for this recipe is some freshly cracked pepper, salt, paprika, and red chili pepper flakes. We're just gonna sprinkle it on top and then get right in there. I'm not really using any specific measurements for the dry ingredients, but it's about a teaspoon of each. Improvising hasn't gone too well so far, but I think we can bounce back. Unfortunately, I don't think the knife is sharp enough for this trick, but the deeper I go into this video, the more I see how skilled this guy actually is. Like, I can't imagine how tough it is to put all this together outside and coordinate these videos, and then just put all these trick shots together too while I can barely cut this onion. I think I got the wrong pepper. Luckily for me, this is another ingredient that I had at home, so I guess something is going right today. I'm going to be using these off the vine tomatoes, and it looks like he has about 12 cherry tomatoes, so I'm going to use maybe 2 of these. We're going to chop them both up, and it's going to go into our meat mixture later. Remember now that it's not good to play with your food, so I'm not even going to try that. So I'm just going to peel 5 cloves of garlic to the best of my ability. I'm going to use a garlic crusher to crush this garlic that didn't want to cooperate with me into a small bowl. And once I let out all my frustration, I'm going to crack in some salt and crack in some pepper. Then we're going to add in our finely chopped parsley. A little bit less than half a lemon. I don't have sour cream, and every time I do buy it, it always ends up expiring. So I decided I'm not going to let that happen again today. But I do have this 6% fat yogurt, which is a pretty good substitute, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons and give it a little mix. Of course, you can add more if it's too strong or too light. And of course, this is going to be the dip for our quesadilla. After tasting it, it's strong enough to kill a vampire, but I actually kind of like it, so I'm going to leave it as is. We're going to lightly dust our surface with some flour. He kind of reminds me of an anime character that gets approached in the forest, minding his own business, and then just beats everybody up with a rolling pin. Anyways, it looks like he managed to make 6 balls out of the dough he had, so I should come out with something similar, and I can always readjust if I need to. But I think we're going to be pretty close. I even found a trick that I can finally do. Now, I'm going to knead these balls so that they're nice and round. I don't want to have these little cracks inside them. And if the balls feel a bit too sticky, you can always add a little bit more flour to soften them up. Now, all I need is 2 more and I can summon Shenron and wish for better cooking skills. However, for now we have 4 even-sized, nice-looking balls, so this will be good for 4 tortillas, and we have 1 spare in case we mess up. I managed to mess the first one up, but I mean, it's just dough, so you can just put it back together. If you've never done this before, the key is to roll it in one direction a couple times, and then flip it to the side, and then roll it again. And you just repeat the process until you get the thickness that you want. His tortillas do look a bit thicker than the traditional tortilla, that are much more thin and crispy. The reason for that is when you add milk and butter to the mixture instead of water and oil, you get a much more fluffier and richer tortilla. If you're also wondering why I'm rolling my tortilla with a towel holder, it's because I broke the handle off my rolling pin a few minutes ago. So whether you're out in nature or at home, you just gotta have to learn how to adapt to your surroundings. Now, these look like they're pretty good size. I don't know if it's gonna shrink a little bit when I fry it in the pan, so I'll make them just slightly bigger than I want them. And once they're all about the same size, we go on to the next step. Now we're going to put our meat onto her tortilla. We added the peppers, the tomatoes, and some more parsley into the meat mixture as well. And we're going to spread the meat nice and evenly, leaving some room off the edges, just like he did. One thing I'm nervous about is cooking this on a cast iron pan instead of a hot fire, because both my meat and her tortilla is raw, so I don't know if it's going to cook the way I want it to cook. We're going to load it with cheese on top, and I'm going to use a combination of cheddar and mozzarella. The cheddar will give it that nice sharp flavor cheddar has, and mozzarella will give it that nice creamy gooiness we're looking for. We're going to brush the edges with a little bit of egg wash. It's going to help us seal the tortilla and make sure none of that cheese escapes too early. Then we're going to cover it up like a nice big blanket, and we're going to pinch it just like he did to make sure it's nice and sealed. I'm going to tap it twice for good luck, and I made them a little bit more flatter and uniform just so I can make sure it cooks nice and even. I'm gonna set my burner to medium-high heat and sprinkle a little water to see if it's ready. Looks like it's a little bit too high, so I'm gonna turn it down a bit, and I think we're ready. I'm gonna be using clarified butter, also known as ghee, to coat my pan. It's got a much higher smoking point than butter, and I like it better than oil. It's also gonna add a nice little browning to our quesadilla, and may even add a little bit of nuttiness to it. Now, the ghee's gonna get hot very quick, and we're ready to add in our quesadilla. Looks like I may have flipped it just a little bit too early, but I'm just gonna flip it back again after. I really want to make sure it doesn't burn. You can see how it's kind of cooking in the middle faster than it is on the edges, so I really want to be careful here. Now let's go for that second flip and see how it looks. Kind of vibes like a giant pancake, but it looks like it's cooking pretty well, and I'm pretty happy with the results so far. It's actually going a lot smoother on the cast iron than I expected. I think the key is just to really get the pan nice and coated and hot right before you put it in. It looks like it's still big and it didn't really shrink much, which isn't really a problem. And it also looks like it got that nice caramelization on top. I think 15 seconds more and it would have started getting on the burn side, but I really wanted to make sure the meat inside was cooked well, which was my biggest worry. Now we're gonna cut it up and see how it looks. It looks like my meat shriveled up a bit, probably when the fat rendered out. It does look well cooked however, so adding a little bit more next time is definitely the way to go. I'm also not getting the same cheese pull our friend from the forest had, so I can add a little bit more of that too next time. It looks like it just melted into the tortilla though, so I know it's there. Now once it finally cools down a little bit, we're gonna dip it into our garlic sauce and give it a rating out of 5 stars. I'm really surprised at how well the tortilla turned out. It is nice and fluffy and crispy on the outside. I actually think I like these fluffier tortillas better than the thinner ones. It's much more rich in flavor. I'm not sure if cooking the meat first on the side and then putting the tomatoes and peppers on top would have given a better result, but it's still really good. The garlic sauce just takes it to the next level. It almost kind of vibes like a pizza as well, because it's thicker than your normal quesadilla, but it's not a bad thing. The parsley inside gives it a little bit of that freshness. So overall, I'm gonna rate this recipe 4.3 out of 5 stars. I don't really get too much of the tomato because it's mixed in with the meat, and I could have added a little bit more cheese and meat inside, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with the result. So guys, let me know in the comments below if you enjoy these kind of videos, and if you have a suggestion. I really enjoyed making this one. I'm gonna leave the original video in the description below so that you can enjoy it yourself. It's from a channel called Two Men with a Pot, and I really think they do an amazing job. With that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.
Gangster to the core, ankle rap flame or paint your kitchen floor.